Yep.
Showtime.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the April meeting of the Kosciuszko County Area Plan Commission. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask for approval of the minutes of the March meeting.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Our plan director, Matt Sandy, has a few things to share before we get into our meeting.
So for those that were here early, you may have heard some of this, so I apologize for the redundancy, but a couple just housekeeping issues. First and foremost, I want to thank everybody for being patient with this area. We were advertised prior to a lot of it. Once we advertise, we are locked into our location without advertising and pushing it out further. Can everyone hear out there? Okay. Speaking into the mics really is a key for all of us, and I apologize because I am just as bad as everyone. The other couple things I had for you, if you do have to use the restrooms, first floor, so we're on the third floor right now, first floor all the way down is where the public restrooms are. For anyone who may, you can take the stairs or the elevators down. Also with that, weather. As you all know, they were calling for some weather today. We have thought that ahead. We've planned with our county administrator, as well as the sheriff's department and our EMA. If for some reason that would occur, there is a plan. We ask you to stay orderly. I'm hoping we get through this, no problems, and it's a nice, clear day. But if there are, we will listen for directions. Last thing I have for it is it is a big room. Hearing is hard sometimes for folks in here because of the echoing. First and foremost, if you could turn down your cell phones. I have to remember that myself often. So if you've got them, please turn them down, as well as try to keep any excess, even if cases, because it carries. And the board members have a hard time sometimes hearing, as well as other members of the public. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Matt. Just to add on a little bit, normally we meet in the basement of the Justice Building. You may know this, and we were unable to do that because of renovation going on.
Board of Zoning Appeals does.
I'm sorry?
Board of Zoning Appeals does.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah, I'm sorry. Board of Zoning Appeals meets there. Okay, confusion. I want to just try to share some ground rules. On zoning issues, as you probably know, the Plan Commission's duties are to make recommendations to the county commissioners. So whatever action we take today pertaining to zoning issues will go to the commissioners for their final disposition. We're aware many of you here today are present because of you want to express your concerns or support, whatever the case may be, concerning the issue of the data center. Since there are a lot of people here, we do have legal requirements for the capacity of this area. And that's why we had the fire department, sheriff department here to help provide assistance with that. Thank you for your cooperation. It is a safety concern, so that's why we are limited. We know that this is a personal issue for many of you, and that there are strong feelings about this issue. However, we would ask that you respect everybody's right to their opinion, regardless of whether you share that opinion. In as much as time allows, we wish to listen to what you have to say. Due to the large number of people here, we have to limit the time that you have to speak, or we'll be here till the evening hours. So I hope you'll understand that the necessity for that. We'll talk more about time limitations in a bit. With that in mind, as we hear your concerns or your testimony, if we get to a point where things are repetitious and we're hearing the same kinds of comments and so forth, we will ask that from that point forward, if you have any new items, new perspectives that we haven't heard, we'd like to hear that. We don't want to squelch anybody. Again, we have a lot of people here that are interested. We want to spread that as much as we can in a reasonable time frame. We ask that we conduct this meeting in a civil fashion. That means you must be recognized by the chair, that's me, to speak. So we strongly discourage any outbursts or show of support or anything like that. If you have thoughts of support, keep them to yourself, and just be courteous. We're going to follow our normal procedures that we follow in every case. And I'll outline those as follows. Matt Sandy will provide a brief overview of each case. And as he's doing that, if it's your case, we'd ask that you come to the lectern and be prepared to share what you have us to know. And as you begin your remarks, we'd ask that you give your name, so we have that for the record. We do have sign-up sheets back there, and that's primarily for the purpose of making sure we have your name right in the record. A lot of times people give their name, and it's hard for our secretary to distinguish that, even as she listens to the recording. So after you've shared your information, if you're a petitioner, the commission members may have questions for you. We'll then, after you've presented your case, if anyone here is in support of what you would like to see done, just for petitioners, we'll take that testimony. Today we've heard that, then we'll see if anyone is here in opposition to what the petitioner would like to see done. After we've taken all that information, the petitioner has the right to respond, address the concerns that have been raised. So with that, after that has been done, after we've taken all that testimony, then the meeting will be closed basically to public comment so that we can have a discussion and come to a decision as far as the case will be carried forward. As far as time issues, the petitioners are going to be given enough time to adequately explain what they would like to see there. Those who wish to speak in support of the case will be given 2 minutes to share their thoughts. And then individuals who are in opposition will be given 2 minutes. And we understand that there's at least one person here who is going to be speaking as a representative of a group. And we'll give that person extra time because they're speaking for a number of people. So we'll give them at least 10 minutes. And then at the time when all that testimony has been taken, then the petitioner will be given 15 minutes to respond to those concerns. And then again, I'm being a little repetitious here, but the meeting will be closed to the public so we can have our discussion and come to a resolution. So I think with that, Matt, we'll turn it over to you.
Okay. So a couple of things. We do ask you to speak into the mic. Like I said, myself, it is hard to hear sometimes, so speaking into the mic will help both the board members as well as the public to hear that. We do have a couple of those. Look at our agenda. We have final plats off to start with. And with that, with our final plats, we have 2 of them. The first one we can take is for prep. This is a 2 subdivision. Do it right there. Andy's pulling this up on the screen there. You can see this is a 2-lot Ag 2 subdivision. We actually heard the preliminary last month. This plan is coming back to us exactly as the preliminary showed. All infrastructure and points are in place, so this one is good to be heard and move forward with final plat.
Yes, sir.
Ryan, the first slide the final plat.
Any questions? Thank you, Gabe. We have a motion?
I make a motion, we accept the final plat.
Second. We have a motion to accept as presented. Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Approved.
Just so procedurally, our chairman and secretary do have to sign that, so they're going to be doing that while I'm introducing the next case. And the next one we have is, this is another Ag 2 subdivision. This is a 1-lot Ag 2 subdivision over in Turkey Creek. And this one, again, for the planning commission just last month, preliminary plat, 1 lot with 1 existing home on it. The site plan that's showing up on the screen there, indicating actually where even the house will be built on this one. For this hearing, it does come back to us exactly as shown and with all points and improvements in place.
You're on, sir.
Retro or petitioner, no changes from last month. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Motion,
Make the motion that we approve this.
I'll second the motion.
any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, while they're signing that, I will go through, one more thing I probably should have mentioned is that we are a 9-member board. As you can see, we only have members today. We are 1 member short to an appointment that we're waiting to get from the county council. For any decision that we make for a motion to pass, it must take 5 members of the board to pass the motion, yay or nay. So, got a quorum. Okay. With that, then we can pick up with our first regular advertised case. And this is case 2025-8 for Lyle Yoder. And this is a petition to rezone 1.45 acres from agricultural to agricultural 2. Property is located on the south side of County Road 1150 North and 370 feet west of County Road 650 West in Jefferson Township. Right there, Andy has that up on the screen. You may remember from 2 months ago, this Ag 2 rezoning that took place just to the south of it. At that time, there was discussion that they were going to be adding a ground on the north side, connecting up to 1150 North. And that was going to be Ag and Ag 2, so there was a little bit of zoning difference there. Coming back with it, they are coming back to get this all zoned Ag 2 before bringing us the preliminary plat that was shown at that first meeting for the large acreage to the south. For this hearing, legal ad did properly appear in the newspaper and by affidavit surrounding owners.
Steve Snyder on behalf of, as Matt indicated, adjacent property was rezoned to Ag 2 a couple months ago. When the plat was prepared, the surveyor mistakenly included the land to the north that was not yet rezoned to Ag 2 and wasn't even owned by the petitioner. Rather, we were going to stand a 30-day delay. Either way we went, we decided to come back, petition for rezoning the north parcel to A2, that our plat will work. And hearing. Just for your reference, I attached a copy of Miller Yoder subdivision, so you can see that it incorporates that north parcel into the lot. On survey, the idea being that we had to save this off, we needed to rezone to Ag 2 and subdivide it. There will be a new house built on the rear lot, and the existing house will remain on the front lot, and ultimately all the setbacks.
any questions? No. Anyone here to speak to this? All right, what's your pleasure?
I make a motion to approve this request.
I'll second it.
Have a motion to approve is presented, second during discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, and as our chairman said, these are recommendations on rezonings. This recommendation will be going to the county commissioners on April 22nd, right here in this room at 9:15 in the morning. And that will be going with a unanimous rezone for their consideration. Okay, next hearing we have on our agenda is the 2025-9 for Murphy Place, Timothy Polk, and Polk Family Farm. Petition to rezone 554 acres from agricultural to industrial 3. Property is located on the north side of 700 North and 0 feet west of 300 West in Prairie Township and Jefferson Township, actually crossing the township line. Andy's got a map up there showing you kind of the outline of the whole acre. There are multiple parcels involved with this tract of ground or this petition, ultimately equaling 554 acres and change. With this request, we are looking at going from ag to industrial 3. One of the keys, and I should have said this at the beginning, and I do apologize. Our purpose here is to look at any rezoning in terms of like, the zoning district that's being proposed. Not specific uses, not conditions. We as an area plan commission cannot condition zonings. We are an area plan commission and we don't have power. We have to look at all those potentials that are allowed in the district for that use. In this case, right now being agricultural, use that they're looking at going to would be industrial 3. So we're not considering the nuts and bolts of petitions. That is a further step down the road. If this would be rezoned, then there would be, in this case, depending on the use, either a permanent use or an exception use. That use then would be reviewed accordingly for all the commercial or industrial criteria that's required, like any other use. So with that being said, we're looking at ag industrial 3. The other thing I should have said, as noted, for all our hearings, we have our technical committee review these. We have those technical committee comments, excuse me, in front of you. One of the items that you always ask about is our Lisa score. So as you know, we do use Lisa as the tool for rezonings that takes into consideration a number of different items. In this case, Lisa score is that came out on this property. The whole 554 acres was 330. In relationship to 260 and above is not rezoned, for reference. Again, we've got all the documents in place. We've got the large maps. I'd like to see those as well. Handed out some additional information here, it appears. So with that, we are properly advertised and notified and ready to roll.
Steve Snyder on behalf of the petitioner. As Matt indicated, the request is to rezone from agricultural to I. There are some interesting provisions in the ordinance now that weren't there before. One is that it must be zoned I3 in order to the data center, which is an exception use in an I3 district. I happened to be at the Plan Commission meeting when the amendment to the ordinance was being discussed that established the proper placement of an I or of a data center in an I3 district. One of the concerns I had at that time was that we would never get to the position where we were able to even consider data center because of the negative implication that came with rezoning to I3. I3 uses are intense. Manufacturing is essentially the use in an I3 district, and those uses can be one of the things I suggested to my client when they first approached me was, in order to have a possibility of obtaining approval, you're going to have to come into the Plan Commission with a voluntary condition. That voluntary condition being that if this property is in a district, the only use that would be made there would be for a data center. As with commercial districts and all the industrial districts, we have a list of uses, some of which simply aren't appropriate in certain areas. And as a result, if we limit what can go into a rezoned area, it provides protection. It gives you the ability to feel more comfortable rezoning because you know what the use is going to be. For the record, very simple voluntary condition. Quote, the real estate shall only be used for a data center as that term is defined in the Kosciuszko County. That's the beginning point of the presentation is, okay, we have to whatever, and in order to have a data center, we have to start with an I3 zone. The question is that the suitability, is the suitability appropriate in this location for an I3 zone limited to a use of a data center? We're dealing with 500 plus acres, but there's another factor that's even more concerning and more be considered, and the fact of the size. In the 1800s, industry located along railroads. They had to. That was their means of transportation. It was essential to the establishment of industry. In the 1900s, industry located along interstates. Once the Eisenhower administration began creating interstates, they became the source of transportation facilities for industrial use. We're now in the 2000s and things are changing. Now, the facilities that are being looked at for the establishment of certain industry are power. We all know the issues we have with our power grid, and we all know that certain facilities require more power than others. So now the search is for the appropriate place where there is added power. And one of the things that this property has that's unique to any other place is that it has 3 transmission tower transmission lines converging on this property. That makes it the ideal situation for the location of a facility such as this. I'm going to spend a lot of time on a data center because with the voluntary condition, I think that's appropriate to do because that's what the I3 does. And we can't really get enough information to you about an I3 with a voluntary condition without providing you the detail of what rezoning means and what it would accomplish. J.C. Witt with Prologis, who is the proposed developer of the project, is here today. I want J.C. to come up now, if he can, to give you a description of what a data center is and what a data center should be. We all in the cloud, and most of us now understand computers to a limited extent. But the use of data center and what it does requires an explanation. So, come on up, JC. Tell us what a data
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the time. JC with Prologis, the developer on the project. And I know there'll be a lot of questions, but I'll hit it at a high level. You know, essentially what the proposed development here is providing is a located computer facility. What we all have in our pockets are phones that are using computers all around the country, data centers all around the country all the time, because your phone can only fit so much information and get so much information. These facilities are essential, just like the power grid, just like you were suggesting, the train infrastructure and the roadway infrastructure for providing the digital infrastructure that we use day to day. This facility specifically would have multiple buildings on the site and would be used for likely cloud computing. What we all know that you're backing up your photos to, or files to, or hosting any of your networks on, and then also potentially what is called machine learning. So, in other words, you know, servers that are doing computations to provide answers to really math equations around different types of uses, whether that's a chatbot or running through medical journals to figure out answers to medical problems. That's really what these buildings are for. And I would say, lastly, these buildings are intended to and desired to be not seedy. There's a lot of confidentiality around what happens in the building because they could host in that cloud computing government contracts, or it could be a picture of your cat, and so they're not going to tell you if your cat's in there or if the NSA's in there, and so they have very high strict confidentiality, and they don't want because of that to be seen. They don't want to be a burden on the surrounding county or surrounding neighbors. And they have certain security requirements that makes them step back. And again, less interaction, the better. Thank you.
With this particular location, the power that is available through Kosciuszko REMC as the local provider in that location. I know there has been concern voiced in the community about what the effect of this amount of power going to a data center would have on other REMC members and the communities that are served by REMC. Dalton Cayley is here from REMC, and I want him to come forward, if you will, to provide a statement as to the effect or lack of effect, if you will, that this development would have. Dalton?
Thank you all for your time today. My name is Dalton Cayley. I'm the Director of Business Development for Kosciuszko REMC. This project will benefit all 18,000 KRMC members, homes and businesses. We have undergone an intense evaluation process with advisors and legal counsel to make sure that it will only positively impact our membership. The addition of this to our community will not cause rate increases. In fact, it'll keep rates where they're at. This project will not cause reliability issues. In fact, it'll allow us to create more system reliability and redundancy. It'll also won't reduce anybody's power availability for our other members' growing needs. The location of this project is what has created this opportunity, as it is at the intersection of 3 major transmission lines and a switching station, so similar to 3 interstate roads connecting. This is the only site that we have that could support this project. Relocating the data center even a mile would involve years of regulatory processes. The addition of new right-of-ways or easements, hundreds of millions of dollars, could jeopardize our feasibility as the community that gets the benefit from us. Relocating it could also take the project out of KRMC's territory, and then the benefits could go to a for-profit utility. So Kosciuszko REMC has consistently demonstrated our commitment to being a community partner. We provide the lowest residential electric rates in Indiana. We started Kosciuszko Connect, which brings fiber internet access to over 20,000 homes and businesses. Through our partnership with the county, we expanded our service territory to Williamsburg and soon to be Claypool as well. So bringing a project like this into our membership allows us to enhance all these efforts, which benefits the entire membership through maintaining our electric rates, additional reliability, and an investment for those we serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Dalton. The existing parcels that we're dealing with have some other features that certainly lend themselves to an I-3 zone. First of all, you need a relatively flat area in which to construct a significant project. We have availability of certain infrastructure, being sanitary sewer, at the intersection of County Road 600 North and State Road 15. That would be the likely connection for what minimal sewer requirements this project would develop. But for an I-3, your own zoning ordinance says, don't rezone something to I-3 if it's a small parcel. The larger the parcel, the better under the terms of your zoning ordinance, because you want to concentrate the use in a particular area. But I think you need to understand the details of this proposed use in light of the voluntary condition that we've offered. I've given you a number of I can walk you through them because each one of them is essential to your understanding of this rezoning request. In the documents I handed you, and I'm enlarged them just because it's not particularly bright in here, and it's going to be easier for you to see. But on the 3rd page, you can see the general aerial map of where this is located west of Leesburg, and then a close-up of the area highlighted in red that is the area we're seeking to rezone. It's a large tract. It has accessibility from the standpoint of roadway, with County Road 900 North being the north access, County Road 600 North being the south access, and County Road 250 running along the side of the project. The next document in the packet is a rendering of what the buildings to be anticipated would look like. Certainly, they will be impressive facilities. There will be 10 buildings on the project when it's fully built out. And I do want you to know that build out is instantaneous. It takes 2 years to put up 2 of these buildings, and the anticipated build out completion date isn't for 10 years. But historically, my client has found that the demand has required them to speed up the time of that build out because they need more capacity, and the only way to get more capacity is to add the next phase of buildings. But we'll get to that timing a little later. The site plan is the next page that shows you the general layout. The tract in question, north is to the left on this site plan. You can see all 10 buildings there. You can also see the location of the transmission lines as they come into this property, and the switching station in orange that actually handles the step down of that voltage to a usable voltage for a project like this. We're dealing with internal roadways, internal parking, meeting setback requirements, and essentially meeting terms of your ordinance from a planning standpoint with surface water detention areas, other drainage facilities. That comes down the road. But we can't get to that unless we've got an I3 zone. The data center is an exception use in an I3 zone, which means the Board of Zoning Appeals ultimately will have to consider the details of the proposed project much more in detail than what you've seen here. But this tells you what it will look like from a planning standpoint in an I3 zone. The next page shows you the power map, and that is a map that shows the site outlined in blue and the convergence of those 345,000 volt transmission lines. It also shows you some other transmission lines that are in Kosciuszko County, but not on this site. That's shown for the purpose of indicating that with the convergence of these lines at this place, it makes this property very unique compared to any other property in the county. The next map is construction traffic. Again, State Road 15 to either County Road 900 North, County Road 600 North, and then accessing the site up County Road 300 West. We had met with Moriarty, the county highway superintendent, to discuss where he wanted that traffic to run. And this was his preference, with the understanding that the county wasn't going to make any road improvements to facilitate this. It would be up to the developer to make those road improvements to provide access for construction purposes, and once the buildings were constructed, access by employees. The agreement that ultimately will be entered into with the county, along with other agreements, will provide that the developer will maintain those roads during construction. And at the completion of construction, at the build out, will put them back into the shape that they were in before construction began, meaning the county is going to benefit from improved roadways in that location where it otherwise probably wouldn't. The community concern has also concentrated on water consumption. And we're dealing with an area of almost exclusively irrigated land. And we understand the water requirements for irrigation are significant. For instance, this acreage, in its current use for agricultural, uses 47 million gallons of water a year. That's agricultural irrigation that only occurs at most from April 15 to October 15, and probably not that long a period of time. But the farmers are required to maintain records of their water usage, and that was the water usage on this parcel, 47 million gallons. You average that out to a daily use, it's 128,000 gallons a day, which I've indicated in the next page of the document. The usage for the data center would be 40,000 gallons per day, and that's essentially for three purposes. 36,000 gallons is for the benefit of the project itself, as far as cooling. 4,000 gallons per day is the employee facility use. In other words, if we have 10 buildings, we're looking at 4,000 gallons a day to service restrooms and coffee makers and et cetera. 36,000 gallons a day in the form of water that's being consumed for cooling purposes. That's broken down into two categories. We're dealing with a closed loop system, which means we're not pumping water to the tune of 3 or 4 million gallons a day out of the aquifer to cool the equipment that will be in these buildings. That closed loop system, for the most part, is charged with roughly 20,000 gallons of water. It stays in there, and it has to be treated on occasion just to prevent mineral buildup. But it also is exposed to the air at the point where it goes over the chillers, which keep that water temperature low enough to cool the equipment. There's a certain amount of evaporation that occurs when that happens, when that water is passing over the chillers. 30,000 gallons per day is what would be evaporated into the air. And 6,000 gallons per day would be caught in a condensate pan, I'll call it. We've all got air conditioning in our homes. If you've got central air conditioning, you know you've got an egg coil that condenses moisture out of the air, drips into a pan, and if you're lucky, the drain that it's supposed to go into isn't plugged up, and ultimately drains outside or into your sewer system. This is essentially the same thing. There would be a condensate pan underneath the chillers that would catch the water that doesn't evaporate. That would then be discharged into a sewer system. Now, I want you to understand these numbers, 40,000 gallons per day is for complete project build out. That's for 10 buildings, which means 4,000 gallons per day per building. And when you look at it from that standpoint, that's a minimal amount. And it also means that until build out's complete, you're not going to approach this 40,000 gallon per day usage. The other thing that is of concern, of course, is you're going to have 10,000 gallons a day at build out. It has to be discharged into a sewer system. There are several alternative systems that are being considered. The most likely would be connection to the sanitary sewer system that runs from Leesburg down to Warsaw for treatment. And this would anticipate a sewer line running from this project to the nearest connection point, which right now appears to be the intersection of County Road 600 North and State Road 15. At that point, this 10,000 gallons a day that has to be discharged would be discharged into a sanitary sewer system for treatment. Normally, if there are any minerals that might be added to this cooling water during use, those would have to be pre-treated at site before they could be discharged into the sewer system like every other industry discharging into a sewer system. There's a pre-treatment agreement that has certain parameters that have to be met by the industry before a municipal treatment plant will accept that discharge for treatment. And those plans are kind of outlined in the next page, plans A through E with the alternatives. Certainly, an on-site sanitary sewer treatment plant would be feasible, but that's certainly not economic compared to the ability to tie into an existing sanitary sewer. Now we look at something that you usually don't have an opportunity to look at, and that's a tax revenue analysis. Because we're limiting this to a data center owner only, that does become a factor for consideration by the county, by the planning commission, and certainly by the county commissioners when this ultimately is presented to them. We've put together a 20-year cash flow analysis showing what the revenue would be. And you have to imagine this runs out, this analysis runs through 2029, which would be the first year this property would hit the assessment as after construction. And it runs for a 20-year period through 2048. It has taken available information along with the cost and value of the structures and the personal property and calculated what the tax revenue to the county would be. Now, this is a calculation based upon a couple assumptions. And those assumptions are that the county council will approve tax abatement to a certain extent on the entire project. But that tax abatement in this projection is 60% abatement of the taxes due on real estate for a 10-year period, and 90% of the taxes due on personal property for a 20-year period. That is ultimately the determination of the county council. They approve abatements, but this was the most conservative number that my client came up with based upon knowledge of what the costs of the project would be, how assessed values are determined in this state and county, and what the ultimate effect would be. The first year the tax revenue would be generated would be 2029, assuming these structures and personal property go on the assessment rolls on January 1 of 28. You're looking at revenue of $2,452,810 in tax revenue after abatement. And like I said, this is the most conservative calculation you could have, compared to $11,800 or $583 tax revenue from the current farming operation. That revenue then increases each year that additional structures are added. We essentially kept the tax rate the same just because it's a conservative estimate as opposed to one that would project tax rates going up. But once you get to the end of that 20-year period, you're looking at tax revenue to the county of $35,841,815. There are a couple of things that make that more significant than just looking at the number. The most important of which is, what is the legislature going to do by the end of this month that reduces the income available to municipalities, including county? Right now, we don't know what the result is going to be, but it almost certainly will be a decrease in tax revenue that's available to the county. And if that happens, There are only two alternatives that the county has besides increasing its revenue. One way to increase revenue is you raise the tax rate. The other way is you decrease services so the expenditures match what the income is. Those two alternatives are not the best way to go, especially when you're looking at something that might provide this kind of revenue over a 20-year and beyond period. With starting with $2.5 million in the first tax year and increasing every year after that up to 35 million. We're dealing with a project that if you were to look at the values anticipated after abatement, you'd say it was a $2 billion project. A billion for the real estate and $1 billion for the personal property. But the actual cost of the project is $10 billion for personal property and $895 million for the real estate improvement. Then you apply whatever abatement the county council would provide to get down to these numbers that are the projected revenue numbers. Next, when you're dealing with adding industry to the county and creating industrial areas where that industry can locate, one of the main factors, and it would be considered certainly by the county council for abatement purposes, but what does it do to the employment situation in the county? Well, we provided a salary analysis of what this would be from the first building construction completion to a full build out. And it is impressive. These facilities must be manned 24 hours a day, as you can imagine. Takes 10 employees, each shift, manage one building. So you're looking at 30 people employed for the first build out. And if you look at those salaries, starting in 29, you're going to have $3 million in revenue from an employment standpoint paid to employees for each of those buildings. So the first year, there's $6 million in salaries paid. These salaries would average $100,000 per employee. This projection anticipates salary growth of at least 3% a year. Again, a pretty conservative figure. But when you look down to year 2048, after the build-out is complete, you're looking at salaries of 38 to 52,000, or 38 million to 52 million per year for the number of employees that the project would utilize. I've talked to you about the water usage before, and I think it is crucial to re-emphasize that. When you're using 47 million gallons a year right now, and you would reduce that down to 40,000 gallons a day or 14.6 million gallons per year, the aquifer is not stressed nearly as much. It's essentially 85% less water being consumed by this project than what is currently being consumed by an agricultural use on the property. The water usage was the first thing that came to my mind when I looked at this project. But there are too many other factors to consider when we're looking at limiting this I-3 zone to data center only. Now, I can hear all the statements now. I've been through projects similar to this for solar farms, for wind farms, and nobody wants them in their backyard. But if I had my choice of a solar farm or a wind farm, I'd take a data center over it any day. One, it's not nearly as visible as either a solar farm or a wind farm. Two, it doesn't require constant attention in the form of traffic in and out every day, other than the employees who are there to operate. Once construction is complete and the roads are restored to their original condition, then you're going to have 300 employees in 3 shifts coming in and out of the property and essentially no other traffic. That's the benefit of having this convergence of the 3 transmission lines. But unlike a similar convergence of 3 interstates, you don't have that traffic to contend with. You and I aren't going to be able to see the electrons moving through the wires like you would cars on an interstate. But it's essential for projects like this to have that. State law says that when you're considering a rezoning, you need to consider adequate air, light, access, and safety. And we have no effect on air. We have no effect on light. We have some effect on access that's being accommodated. One, during the construction period with continual maintenance of the roadways, after the construction maintenance, with very little requirement for maintenance above that of a normal county road. Another consideration is avoiding congestion in public ways. Traffic that comes in once the project's built out comes from State Road 15. It comes to 2 intersections, 900 North and 600 North. Those are both intersections that preferably would get some attention from the state of Indiana, but they are accessible. The I-3 standards are heaviest use, usually manufactured with data centers as an exception. BZA approval will ultimately be required, and the performance standards of section 3.26 of your ordinance, which are required for any project, will have to be met. Again, particular to this parcel is the size, the power supply, and availability of access roads. Look at the public benefits you have to consider, since it's limited only to a data center: tax revenue, increased employment, added value, and one we haven't discussed, diversification of industry in the county. Finally, simply progress. Diversification is something we hear about in this county all the time because we are so based on the orthopedic industry, and everyone's afraid it's just going to disappear. Well, it may or it may not. But if we have diversification with employment and tax revenue and dispatch, we don't have to worry about maybe one employer shutting down. We're dealing with a parcel that is unique, that is suitable for this type of limited use in an I-3 district, and I would ask for your recommendation approving its rezoning.
Any questions? Is there anyone here in support of this project that wishes to speak? Come forward and give your name, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Peggy Friday. I am the CEO of the Kosciuszko Economic Development Corporation. I have 20 years experience in economic development, in industrial and data center development. I appreciate the opportunity to share my thoughts from an economic development standpoint. I want to first acknowledge that when there's a potential for something new in the community, it's only natural for questions and even concerns to arise. That's a reflection of a community that deeply cares. You're invested in this place and in one another, and that's something to be proud of. Secondly, I recognize this conversation is a new experience for us. We've never had a data center located here before. That's why our community leaders and elected officials are taking this process seriously. doing their homework, and working hard to make sure that they're asking the right questions and fully understand both the economic and the community impact. Many of the questions you may have are the very questions that we've been asking, as well as because we want to be sure that we have the facts and that we're making informed decisions together. This potential investment could significantly enhance our schools, roads, and infrastructure, public safety services, and other essential community resources. Lastly, let's take a moment to consider the potential impact from a technology perspective. Our ag community has witnessed firsthand how technology has transformed farming and continues to shape the future of agriculture. And the same is true for every industry in our community. The tools and resources we rely on today are vastly different from those used by our parents and grandparents. And those tools will look completely different used by our children and our grandchildren. If we want to remain competitive, attract young talent, create opportunities for future generations, we need to have the right resources, technology for agriculture, industry, and education. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Frank Levinson. I'm a local business owner in the county, a real estate development firm. We're invested in Leesburg and Warsaw, continue to work in the county for multi-home and small bay industrial. I have 20 years of experience before I started this job, federal aerospace, working for the Air Force and a large aerospace program that used data centers like this. I've been in them. My programs have provided services for this. As I was listening to the comments here, I'm struck by three major things. As we consider whether or not we trade farmland, which is extremely valuable and a very worthwhile part of this county, given the ag component that we have, or a potential data center. So I don't make that consideration lightly. There's three things that I kind of struggle with. The first one is density. One of the things I look for in density is what is the return on investment that we're going to get? How many structures are going to be there? What is the purpose of those structures? What is going to be disrupted versus what will be getting? The second one is leverage. One of the things that got touched on by a couple of the prior speakers was the investment of infrastructure, specifically power within the county. This county has lacked some of the leverage to get utility providers to do what this county needs from a development standpoint. I think this data center really adds to that. Because as it's going to be using the power and the data center will be paying for every kilowatt of power it's going to consume, that is able to be reinvested by the utility provider and spread out in a more equitable way rather than forcing that on residents and businesses. You have a big business that's coming in to take. The third one is return on investment. I talked about that. I did a 20-year projection based on the numbers that were recently published on this. And what I found is the parcel that's being considered for the farmland currently pays $311,000, $100,000 over a 20-year period. It's estimated with grant.
Need to wrap up.
What I calculated with this is there's $402 million. Let me say that again, $402 million that will come into this county with revenue. And I think that is exceptionally powerful and critical for growth as we move forward and how we're going to invest. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Or no, sorry. You can't. Anyone else in support? You'll have an opportunity for questions if you want to speak in opposition or whatever. All right. Nobody else in support? All right. Those in opposition, and I know Mr. Birch is here to speak on behalf of a group, so please come and.
Lee, before Jack gets going, I do want to recognize that we did get a number of remonstrance in. Those have been passed along to you as they came in. Just for the record, I'm going to read the names of those that did send them in so they do know that they were recognized. There was a Charles Doss, Cassie Falk, Joyce Garman, Amber Hab, Nina Harmon, Anita Hall, Mason Jones, Ken Long, Geraldine Stuckey, Delia Schwartz, Shayla Schwartz, sorry, Steve Truman, Jane Templin, Robbie Kelly, Rod Teeple, Karen Templin, and Keep Leesburg Rural all sent those in. There were other calls and discussions, but those were actual emails and letters that came in that we did pass along. So the folks here do know that their remonstrance was seen by you in advance. So thank you, Jack, for letting me take that moment.
Are these also part of the mics, or can I move them, or these?
Oh, those are that's the.
Oh, okay. No, I just was trying not to drop things off. Okay, I'm Jack Birch. I'm here formally representing Spooky Farms, Templin Farms, Bruce and Beth Lamb, and Clunett Elevator. I think the first thing, the most important thing, and I'm probably going to hit this several times, you've got a technical committee. They are, you were the recommending body. You've also got a technical committee that you rely on. They're the experts for the experts. Their evaluation came back with a Lisa score of 330. Take that into consideration. I've never seen that high. I doubt anyone in this room has seen that high, but do not consider that. When we look at factors for a map change, you've got to look at the comprehensive plan. That's the first step. The comprehensive plan, the overwhelming goal is to preserve what our county has been based on forever, and that's agricultural production. Preserve the farmland. It's always to protect and preserve ag land. That's stated I don't know how many times in the comprehensive plan. We are trying to avoid the negative impact and destroying our prime farm ground. This project, when we talk about one tract, it has an impact on all the other tracts around it and all the other industry that's associated with the ag industry. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about the comprehensive plan. I know some other speakers are going to talk about that in a lot more detail. But recognize the Leesburg and Clunett area is probably, and I'm not even sure, probably, it is the most productive ag land in our county. The most productive. This tract will be the most productive non-irrigated tract in the county. And certainly if you look at what other tracts, what other farms are up there, you all recognize it. They are the big, productive, profitable farms. They are a huge industry, and that's where they're all focused. That's where they are all located. This is going to have a huge impact. Current conditions, this entire area is ag. It's incredibly productive. There's no industry, no industrial zoning. The closest industrial zoning is 1 mile away, but it's I-2 and it's Clunett Elevator. It's directly an ag related industry. The closest non-ag industrial zoning is 3 miles away in Leesburg, over 3 miles away in Leesburg. The technical committee report tells us that with respect to impact on structures and uses, it's likely that the entire drainage structure is going to have to be rebuilt in order to service the drainage and runoff from this project. So it's not just a little bit that's going to happen here. It's going to have to be rebuilt. That's from your own technical committee. What's the most desirable use for the district? This is the determination for the district and not this tract. Okay, we got to look at what the entire area is. Just because there are 3 power lines there doesn't mean we get to destroy everything else in the area or have a significant impact on everything else in the area. We need to look at the district and determine, is this the appropriate next step for this area? And I would suggest to you that it's not. And there's been a term that, since I've been practicing 30 plus years and been involved in zoning, spot zoning is a term that's always been thrown around. And I've tried to avoid that because I think it's used way too much. I think this is the one time that's appropriate to use it. To me, this is the definition of creating an island in the center of something that's completely incompatible. The most desirable zoning is what this is now, and that's ag. We talked about the fact that we've got 3 power lines that converge here, and that maybe it's going to be really difficult and there might be delays in extending power to a different location. I don't think anybody here, at least with respect to the people I've talked to,
say a data center is terrible or we shouldn't have one or anything like that. We think there's a lot of locations that would be perfect for it, just not in the middle of the most productive agricultural area in the county. It may be more expensive, but so we're extending highways. We built railroads in the easy part, the flat area in the east, but then we got to mountains in the west. We didn't stop. We figured out how to do it. It was more expensive, but we needed to get there, so we did it. Just because this track would make it easier doesn't mean we should say, okay, that's where we go. We should plan for that and make sure it's the right area. We shouldn't just say it's the easy area, the simple, the cheapest area, so that's why we should do it. There's no reason that power can't be extended to another location. And the state, if you've looked at the legislation and the tax considerations and the tax abatement, the fact that sales tax has been eliminated for 25 to 50 years on power use or power purchases, plant purchases, all the infrastructure for data centers specifically, it's clear that the state is doing everything possible to help the data centers become a reality. I find it hard to believe the state is not going to help streamline and fast track the acquisition of necessary right-of-ways. I'm not sure. I think that possibility has been explored. I don't think we should just accept this is the only location in the county. And because it's a nice shiny thing, we should jump at it. Tax consideration, as we go through this list, you'll find that tax benefits is nowhere on the considerations that you're supposed to consider. You are the zoning body. There's a financial consideration that the council considers. That's the tax. That's the one that considers the financial issue, not the commission. Conservation of property values in jurisdiction. The increase in property values obviously does increase the value of this property, but does it truly increase the value of the property surrounding this? I would posit to you that it only does if we then rezone all of those properties to I3 or some other industrial use. I think they become more valuable as ag property. I mean, you can see my clients and this room, I think all of this room, don't see it as any value to be ag property. So I think it makes the property, surrounding properties any more valuable, probably makes them less valuable. And it's the values within the jurisdiction, not the value of the property that you're considering. We've always recognized that the ag industry is concerned about encroachment of other uses that then impact and cause them problems. This is what we've always looked at as a domino effect. Others who are directly involved in the industry and our neighbors will also talk about this more. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But your technical committee saw that as an issue and raised it in the technical committee report. So it's not just me seeing that. It's not just these people that are seeing that as a possible problem. And the property value isn't just the price, but it's the economic value. We're providing crops, we're providing food for people, we're providing economic benefit from the standpoint of an elevator, the ag sales, the farm machinery, the farm repairs, all the employees, livestock, sale barns, etc. I mean, ag is has huge tentacles out there that once we start taking acreage out of production, the impact is amazing on how far we're going to impact people. We have to take that into consideration. And once we take it out, we're not getting it back. This is something that we're going to lose it, not just for now, not just for 10 years, but we're going to lose it forever. It's not coming back. This is currently the new technology. Is a data center? We don't know. Is this going to be the technology that we need in 20 years, in 25 years? Maybe. I don't know. Do we use the same technology we did 25 years ago? Is our internet still dial-up? Maybe it will always be data centers that we need. But maybe technology changes and we don't have that. The other thing you have to consider is for responsible growth and development. The reason that we try and keep zoning classifications together is to take care of the shared infrastructure. What we're doing here is creating all kinds of infrastructure to go to this one place, increasing, rebuilding the drainage line, creating new roads, all those sorts of things. We don't need that if we make it adjacent to another industrial area. We may have to extend one utility. That's for business. That's one factor that, and it certainly could benefit many of the other industries in that area. We still get those benefits. We'll still get the tax revenue. We have industrial land that's available that could be used for this project. I would suggest that it's just the easiest property to use. There's also been all kinds of representations to you. There's the offer that this will be limited to just a data center. That's wonderful. But make sure you understand what that limitation means. It means the definition of a data center under your ordinance. It doesn't mean a limitation to the data center that they prescribed to you. Okay? This sounds like a wonderful company. Sounds like it could be a great plan. But not all data centers use a closed loop system. Many draw water out of the aquifer. From my research, they're drawing potentially 500,000 gallons a day, year round. Potentially dumping or potentially having to get rid of that hot water someplace into our drainage system. There's all kinds of, and maybe having to produce electricity, additional power on site. There's been talk of the need for small nuclear reactors, not necessarily on site. I don't know, but that's an issue that has been raised. These are all issues. The heat that's generated. These are all issues that are out there that we have to consider, because this may not be ultimately the company or the project that gets built, because we don't know what we have tomorrow. You're limiting, you may limit this zoning to a data center. But what happens if something catastrophic happens to this company, or the deal falls through? We don't know. You've limited this to a data center, and now that's the only thing that you would go in there, and it could be whatever kind of data center. You have no control over that, right?
We want to give you a minute to wrap up. You're over your time, but go ahead and wrap up if you.
Well, I'd like to be able to address in a fair fashion what the petitioner had. Thanks.
Well, if you can do that quickly, we'll accommodate that.
Well, I'm not suggesting that the representations are not accurate from what Steve told you. I'm just suggesting that there's nothing you have teeth to bind them to that. They're all promises that you have no control over. And again, the tax revenue is not a consideration. The tax revenue will still be there if they find another location to put it there. You have to consider this property is one of the most productive areas, and look at all the huge farms that are located in that area. It is the basis of our community. It's the #1 industry in our community. And why would we look at the shiny new object that may or may not be the future when we have a historic basis for our community? And we could still have this, but in a proper location without losing what we have now, what we always have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that's speaking for a group? Come forward, please.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come here, and I'd also ask that because the people that are coming after me, none of us are polished speakers. We're trying very hard to meet your 1 to 2 minute level. Believe me, everyone has tried to accommodate that, but I would ask that you give some of us less polished speakers the opportunity to speak our hearts, and we will try very hard to accommodate that 2 minute level.
We need your name, please.
Beth Langer. I'm here to talk about spot zoning, and the first thing I'd like to say is that spot zoning actually has 2 parts to it. The first part is that you are singling out a particular parcel, normally a small parcel, that is going to be rezoned for a use that is totally different than the surrounding area. And in this particular issue that we have at hand, this is going to be a 554 acre heavy industrial spot zoning, which is much different than I believe the ordinance calls for a 10 acre minimum for heavy industrial. So obviously this minimum has been met and exceeded beyond that. The second part of the spot zoning means that the process allows for the benefit of one or several to the detriment of others. Spot zoning has also been known as the antithesis to actual planning. In other words, it's just the opposite. It is not what we do when we are responsible planning. The Planner's Web, which is a site that is used by commissioners to help guide and inform them on how to make their decision-making, has an interesting thought that I'd like to pass along. And that is that it says in every case, not in some cases, not in a few cases, but in every case, the most important criteria in determining spot zoning is the extent to which the disputed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Indiana State Code 36-7-4-603 says the Planning Commission and the legislative body, aka our commissioners, shall pay reasonable respect to, and the number one thing is the comprehensive plan. After that, they are to follow and give regard to current conditions and the character of the current land, the most desirable use for the land, the conservation, of the property value, and the last thing that they are to consider is the responsible development and growth of this area. Responsible development and growth. So the comprehensive plan we see is not only a guide, it's a very important document that should be followed. So what does our comprehensive plan say? Our comprehensive plan says that their goals are to ensure the success of residents, of all residents. It is also to provide balance and provide orderly growth and manage local resources. The recommendations and the priorities that you find in our comprehensive plan are to preserve agriculture and also to use the comprehensive plan as the detailed guide in decision making. To me, the most important thing that I read in our comprehensive plan was this, and I quote, "Although new growth and development is encouraged within this comprehensive plan, the protection and preservation of existing agricultural land uses in Kosciuszko County should also take a priority." It also says, new development, while beneficial, can create negative impacts on existing agricultural assets, such as drainage, runoff, destruction of prime farmland, and land use conflicts between the new, existing, and character. Finding a balance will require communication between the property owners and the farmers. We'll have to ask our property owners here today if they feel that that has been met. So let's just take a quiz and let's see how this particular heavy industrial spot zoning, how it fares with falling in line with the comprehensive plan that we are supposed to be using. Number one, are you following anything in the forward Kosciuszko County Comprehensive Plan when it comes to your priorities, the goals, and the recommendations that were set forth in this comprehensive plan? No. Question two, are you following the directive to preserve and protect existing agricultural land? No. Spot zoning does not do that, particularly in this case. Number three, are you following its directive to understand the negative impacts on existing agricultural assets? No. Spot zoning does not do that. Number four, are you following the directive that states you are against the destruction of prime farmland? Obviously, this is the opposite of that too. You're taking land out of production. Further, it says, are you following its directive to consider the conflict between new and existing land? I'll just go on and try and make this as brief as possible. Are you following its directive requiring communication between property owners and farmers? Are you following its directive to ensure the success of all residents? And I believe all residents includes farmers that live on our farmland. And the 2022 comprehensive plan has a particular challenge that it states is we have limited guidance for protection, preservation, and expansion of agricultural industry. Does this spot zoning meet the challenge? I would say that it does not. So what are we accomplishing by spot zoning this heavy industrial in the middle, in the center of an agricultural community, the agricultural farmland? Number one, you accomplished, you are not following the plan that you're directed to use. Number two, you are creating the appearance of corruption because spot zoning can be used to manipulate. Is a tool to be used that is not a between property owners. It does disrupt the makeup of the land. It discriminates by placing a few over the judgment of others, and it does cause conflict. That is certainly what spot zoning does. In conclusion, the comprehensive plan was written to provide opportunity to think through specific unique needs. Do we have any ordinances that have been thought through the specific needs of a 554 hyperscale data center? The technical review committee heard, and I quote, variances from I3 zoning will be required to optimize the site for data center operations. These adjustments may include, I say they might, should have, or they should have said, may include, but not limited to, adjustments to the height restrictions, fencing, screening, and architectural features. I guess this means this particular I3 zone is obviously going to require some very special attention that maybe we haven't hidden. I'm not certain if you've had time to look at other counties, talk to other counties and see what problems or issues they have met. Perhaps you have. But in my mind, if you vote in favor of this heavy industrial spot zoning, and you're only looking at the proverbial pot of gold at the end of the transmission line, failed test. And in my grade book, I'm sorry, fellas, I give you an F.
Thank you. Mary, thank you. Please, folks, okay. Please try to accommodate the timing for everybody.
Will do. I'm Robbie Kelly. I live on West 600 North, not too far from where the proposed zone is going to be. So some people might be thinking, how does spot zoning affect me? There's lots of ways that spot zoning can affect us. We're just farmers and ag community not stuck in the ability to move forward. Well, that's really not the case. When you look at our different articles and definitions under our county ordinance, you'll find 11 pages of definitions, which I'm sure you all know. Some of them are very interesting to read. In reading that section, you'll notice that residential is not compatible with the I3 heavy that is proposed. For those questioning, how could this impact me? Here's an example. There's a portion of land between 450 North and 350 North, as well as 100 East and 175 East, that contains roughly 320 acres of land that's zoned agriculture. The transmission lines running through that property are close to big. I believe that in the middle there, there's 5 to 6 subdivisions with lots of houses. So say that farmer or that landowner wanted to sell their land, then you might consider ignoring the comprehensive plan or the ordinances that we currently have for in a smaller industrial area. Would you sacrifice their quality of life for the betterment of the community as a whole? I doubt it. Subdivisions are residential areas that have valuable resources in our community. They're not just houses, they're just like our area. Would you ignore the comprehensive plan and sacrifice their quality of life? Probably not. That would be controversial, probably some more outcry from those citizens than what you're hearing today. Ultimately, rezoning, is that land the food that brings to your table that provides for this community? We feel that this is discrimination against our current ordinances in residential areas that we currently live. Obviously, you wouldn't put a landscaping company at the end of a cul-de-sac. Why would we put and I-3 heavy in the middle of agricultural land. I think we need to add a new definition to our ordinance called the resident, or the people. The families of this community, including the agriculture, farm, and rural Amish owners, their children and grandchildren, to be considered when we look at these things. We shall be treated equally, justly, and their rights shall be protected. Is the answer to prioritize the wants of an investment of a real estate company in California? Or is it to keep the residents here and our land as agriculture to provide the necessary food, fuel, and fiber for our everyday lives? Thank you.
Thank you. It's okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Courtney Van Cleve, and I come to you today as a concerned resident who lives within miles of the proposed site with my husband and 4 small children. A resident who is deeply troubled by the proposed rezoning of agriculture land to industrial. Land that should be preserved for the quality of life and the integrity of Kosciuszko County as promised on your own comprehensive plan. The forward Kosciuszko County plan is a plan that ensures safety, wellness, and enhancing for our community for all residents. Rural and farm families of Kosciuszko County deserve the same protection for their quality of life as the residents of the towns and the cities. Yet the introduction of spot zoning from ag to industrial for a data center, complete with cooling towers, diesel generators, constant noise, 24/7 lighting, not to mention potentially 20 years of construction, travel, dirt, and noise, violates those very principles. Your zoning ordinances are clear in Article 3. Section 3.9, land use should not harm health, safety, or general welfare. Section 3.17, lighting must not cause glare into residential areas. Section 3.26.3, noise must be controlled. Section 3.26.6, air pollution standards prohibit harmful emissions crossing into property lines. Despite these clear standards and priorities set by the plan and ordinances, we face a proposal that violates them. Rezoning this land betrays your own standards. Beyond ordinances, Prologis, a massive corporation with the means to place a hyperscale data center wherever they choose, has set their sights on our community. We have to ask ourselves why. Because our land is seen as expendable and affordable, an easy target for profit. Our rural landscape, defined by fields, farms, and family homes, built on hard work and dedication, is at risk of being replaced by massive industrial structures. Families who have lived here for generations deserve more than to see their property values plummet and their quality of life destroyed because of corporate encroachment. We've built a community where our children thrive in 4-H programs, learn the value of integrity, stewardship, and perseverance. We raise them to honor God's creation, to respect the land, and to care for our neighbors. But a hyperscale data center like the one Prologis proposes contradicts everything we hold dear. It tramples on the principles of stewardship, a community that God has called us upon. In conclusion, if you approve the spot zoning, despite the clear violations and devastating impact it will have on our quality of life, you are setting a dangerous precedent. The eyes of the community are upon you, and so are the eyes of every county considering opening its doors to these developers. What you do here will echo far beyond Kosciuszko County. As leaders in our community, we thank you, and we ask you to make the right choice. Stand by your plan and preserve our quality of life. Please reject this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here to let you know that I am adamantly opposed to changing the zoning in Prairie and Township and Agriculture Industrial 3 as requested. My family and most of the farmers in this area did not know anything about this proposal until the receipt of your letter. It seems as if not much public scrutiny was desired. The NIPSCO substation has been like a magnet to draw in non-cultural agricultural interests. I feel that a rezoning of agriculture to industrial 3 would have the same undesirable effect. I came to this community 64 years ago in 1961 when I married John Stuckey. The Stuckey's family has owned land in Prairie Township for over 150 years. My late husband and I worked very hard to acquire the land I presently own. His quote was, "Don't sell any of your land because they don't make any more." He and I both love this land, and I have turned down numerous offers to sell or lease any of it for anything other than agriculture. All three of my children and their children live right here within 1 mile of each other. This flat prairie is considered to be very productive land for crops. I've had many offers by solar companies in the last 5 years to buy or lease for solar. They were lucrative offers, but this is farmland. There are big concerns with the data center, in addition to the loss of excellent food, such as the unknown impact on the water table, the impact on electricity, the response, such as noise, bright lighting, and an increase in traffic. As fast as our technology moves, there will be 554 acres under concrete that will never be reclaimed, just wasted land. We make our homes here and we relish the peaceful tranquility of our neighborhood. It doesn't seem fair that one rezoning can disrupt this for so many families in this area. Anybody that is for this rezoning, I feel shame on you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Hayden Stuckey. I represent the young agriculturalists within Kosciuszko County and my home school of Tippecanoe Valley. Being that I am the 8th generation of farmers on this land, the proposed change directly impacts my home, the community, and the future of agriculture. That is why I stand here today to be a voice for the next generation of agriculturalists and to protect the land that sustains us. As an FFA member, I am reminded of the deep responsibility that I carry to advocate for the future of agriculture. Agriculture has been the backbone of America for generations, providing food, clothes, and other materials that we rely on each and every day. Simply put, without the hard work of our farmers tending the fertile lands of Indiana, our way of life would not exist. Kosciuszko County plays a vital role in feeding our growing nation. Our farmland doesn't just produce crops and livestock, but it cultivates a promise for the future. And that is something that we, as Hoosiers, as stewards of the land, must not take away. Indiana is right now the 9th largest agricultural state in the country, a leader in corn, soybeans, pork, and poultry. But if we allow this land to be rezoned for industrial use, we will be setting a dangerous precedent. This is not just about one project. It is about irreversible loss of farmland across Indiana. If this continues in just a few short years, thousands of acres of productive land across our state could be lost to industrialization. And when the farmland is gone, so are the livelihoods of our farmers, the strength of our rural communities, and the ability to feed our nation. As a future agriculturalist, I am reminded of the opportunities that I have been given. Opportunities to learn, to lead, and to stand up for what is right. Today, I urge you guys to vote against this rezoning, not just for the farmers of today, but for the generations of agriculturalists who will come after us. Vote for our land, vote for our community, and vote for our state. Thank you.
All right. Hello, folks. My name is Drake Schwarzenberger. What's interesting is I'd like to start off by pointing out that of the folks who have spoken so far, the only ones in favor of the project have had financial incentive to agree with the project or are here present on, for professional reasons, for the project. No one has spoken from a personal belief outside of money. I'm here to offer a fresh perspective that hasn't been addressed quite yet. And it's an existential threat to humanity. Okay. Also, yeah. But you have something you'd like to say?
To me?
Yeah.
It's clearing my throat.
Okay. Fair enough.
Relax, take a deep breath, okay?
Okay, so I'd like to point out, not only do I believe that data centers should not exist in rural territory, I deeply believe that we should not accept or allow them to be built anywhere in Kosciuszko County. Just a few days ago, I was in Chicago talking with a fellow who had been flown in from Britain to help replace tens of thousands of workers using artificial intelligence or machine learning infrastructure. Schneider's client admitted that they intend on using this structure for machine learning and artificial intelligence purposes. The gentleman who I was speaking with, says that he predicts in the near future the vast majority of jobs will be replaced by artificial intelligence. That includes bankers, that includes musicians, poets, whatever job you think is safe for machine learning, delve into it a little bit and look at your own jobs and think about if that future is going to exist in a handful of years. All right, so I can assure everyone in the room, it doesn't matter how many boathouses you have. It doesn't matter how much financial incentive you believe you have to allow this data center to happen. In the end, in a future where most of the county is jobless and hungry, and folks must steal to survive, and droves of populations are imprisoned by cops as a result, you all will be suffering and miserable like everyone else. Artificial intelligence isn't good for any of us working class humans at all. Clearly, the people of Kosciuszko, I've talked with a number of this crowd, and none of us want this blasphemy. This is an insult to our children's future and your children's future and grandchildren's future. And it's marring our fertile soil. So the question is our local commissioners and politicians going to honor the will of the people, or are they instead going to bow to the short-sighted corporate and bureaucratic greed? We're about to find out, folks. Thank you for your time. I hope you'll consider this you'll consider this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi there. My name is Gabe Ayers. I'm from Brunette, and so we'll be impacted by this somewhat, not just from a business perspective, but also living in the community. And so my main topic, and I'll keep it very, very brief, is food security, right? And so we talk about food security in a lot of different ways, and basically the actual production off of this ground, which has been mentioned numerous times, is important. So I'm not going to repeat all the production numbers, but something else that was not mentioned is that every acre of farmland supports other businesses in our community. So whether it's the parts store, the repair shop, machinery dealership, grain elevator, crop protection and crop nutrition companies, irrigation, tile, even the local lenders and beyond. I can't name them all, but each part of that is what helps these. Now, these aren't merely transactional type. These aren't merely transactions. These are relationships built over time and run deep in our community for our children and our future generations. So, I-3 zoning has been talked about a lot. Spot zoning has been talked about a lot. The 550 acres of ground produces roughly around 110,000, 111,000 bushels of corn annually. And so over the lifetime of that ground, you can think of millions and millions of bushels that go to feed livestock, people, and also the potential for other uses. And so I will, again, keep this brief. I'm not reading my speech. I just simply am speaking from the heart. But one thing I did want to want to mention was the founders of this county, that the names that we talk about and the generations. You heard one say 8 generations, which is huge, hugely important, and you don't see too many businesses like that. So it is one of uniqueness. It is one that our ancestors never thought we'd be having this type of discussion. And so just try to remember that where we began, the historical and current and future values of potential farm ground, the economic growth that farmland does provide to our local communities, and the diversified and renewable and sustainable products that do come from ag land. I'm sure that we would all ask this question of you, and that is, be forthcoming, open, and transparent. We ask that you remember where we began and that we place all people over temporary gain. We ask that we do consider the long-term impacts, but I think there are a lot of unknowns, and that we follow logical and sensible land use plans, as you've heard many times, the comprehensive plan. So our reality today seems to be challenged, and so spot zoning really has not been in the best interest of food security and our growing agricultural community. So with that, we ask that you protect our future generations, and would appreciate your vote no on this change of zone. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey guys, my name is Jared Templin, and I'm here representing Templin Farms and local residents for what's coming in. I'm going to shorten my speech up for you guys, so I'm not repeating a bunch of stuff, but I still think I need to be said what I'm going to say. If you look at Kosciuszko County's plat book in the 1800s, there are a lot of familiar names. You'll find a lot of you guys will know these: Anglins, the Halls, the Powells, the Stookies, the Boggs, the Bishops, and the Money Heifers, scattered throughout the Prairie and the Jefferson Township. These families developed this area through hard work, trust, and mutual respect. They were and are good stewards of the land, and they passed their agricultural legacies down to the families. They were the foundation of the rural character we have today. I am sure you guys remember Fred Powell and John Anglin. They were RMC board members and leaders of the churches and volunteers in their community. Fred and John's legacies are alive today in their children and grandchildren. The work ethic, values, and sense of community are embedded in the county's farm families. Just like Fred and John and those before them, local farmers dedicated themselves to community and sustainable economic growth and development. For decades, our people in agriculture have financially supported local businesses and built businesses of their own, volunteered in FFA and 4-H, and supported the youth's futures, joined service organizations like the Lions Club, became county, district, and state leaders in the boards such as Farm Bureau, and they have supported each other through difficult and trying times. Farmers are the backbone of the community, so why are we concerned about a data center? To the community, this is a crucial moment and we need to stand together. I urge everybody in the ACP and our elected officials to take a serious look at the comprehensive plan. If it is worthless, why was the time and the money spent on it? Keep your promises, keep agriculture, keep small town, vote no. God bless.
Good afternoon, I'm Cassie. This should not be happening. For the property owners, for the families who have built their lives here, this feels like a well-planned out shock and awe mission. We received notice about the rezoning mid-March, just 3 weeks to process this decision that will alter our livelihoods, threaten our farmland, and impact generations to come. Meanwhile, our elected officials already knew and were discussing this plan for the data center to move the I-3 zoning as far back as June of 24, maybe before. It doesn't matter if that wasn't the original intent, perception becomes reality. And right now, the reality we see is a process that lacked transparency, open dialogue, and respect for the people that impacts the most. This has turned to a political version of Survivor. You all know Survivor, right? It's been on for a long time. Alliances are being made in back rooms, whispered conversations, and threats thrown around. What are the prize? The immunity idol, Prologus. But let me remind you, just like Survivor, at the end, the remaining players get to decide the fate, the people that vote. But beyond perception, beyond frustration, this rezoning directly contradicts the comprehensive plan. The plan designed to grow and develop in a way that protects our agricultural resources, our rural communities, and our way of life. The plan emphasizes preserving prime farmland, maintaining rural character, and ensuring the industrial expansion happens in an appropriate manner in planned areas, not arbitrarily in the middle of agricultural land. Spot zoning I-3 in the middle of prime farmland is just wrong. It's reckless. It ignores the vision of our county laid out responsibility development. It opens the door for more industrial sprawl that will slowly chip away at our agriculture foundation that supports our county and future generations. In conclusion, don't let your promises be broken. Be a man of your word. Stand by the principles outlined in the Kosciuszko County Development Plan, Comprehensive Plan, because once trust is lost, you will not get that back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Monica Miller, and we live on 425 West, which is just, would be just west, about a half a mile. I never would have thought that I would be standing in front of a group of women asking to spare a way of life in our precious farmland. A little over 30 years ago, when we drove out to look at the old Kegabine place, as many of the old timers would call it, I thought we were in the middle of nowhere 30 years ago, with a promise from my husband that Lynette and Leesburg will always be just that, for farmers and those that have put down roots and put their whole life into their own little slice of heaven. Don't worry, it'll always be like this. It'll always be peaceful. Farming is more than a livelihood. It's a way of life. It's waking up before dawn, the feel of the sun on your back, the joy of a good harvest, the silent moments of reflection under a vast open sky filled with hard work, simple pleasures, and with authenticity, integrity. I know, I do it. I canned over 600 plates of food last year. And that's shared with needy families. It's shared with my children, it's shared with neighbors. And I can almost guarantee you that the people in this room have more knowledge of preserving food and butchering and feeding, could feed a town if we needed to. The encroachment of industrialization threatens not just our land, but our identity. The proposal to rezone our farmland to I-3 is more than mere change in land use. It's a shift away from a life of self-sufficiency, or stewardship, to one dominated by machines, factories. And I say factories, it might be honed in and you might have these promises that come 20, 30 years from now. If it's zoned for an I-3, who's going to be at the table? Because it's already zoned out that way. So it could someday be factories. No one knows. This landscape that once flourished with crops and livestock could be replaced by cold, lifeless structures that speak nothing of our heritage. This land is our land. It's not just a commodity to be traded or transformed. It's a living entity that sustains us both physically and spiritually. To see it carved up and consumed by industrial development is to lose a part of ourselves. The community that we're around has been built on mutual support. You see everybody in this room. And our shared values. The rezoning plan threatens to disrupt this delicate balance. This influx of industrial activity could bring noise. Think of all of the construction. It could bring noise, pollution, a host of environmental hazards that could endanger our health, our well-being. We don't know. We've never had a data center in our area before. And including, which I would like to emphasize this fact, it was a couple years ago, maybe it was more, it seems like the older I get, time just flies faster. So we had a drought. I didn't think it was a very bad drought because my garden was doing well, because my husband, my faithful husband, is out watering our garden We have 2 very large gardens. And I came in to do my laundry and I had no water. I'm like, Everett, what in the world happened? We just watered the garden. Why don't I have water for my washing machine? We had no water. Why? Because bless their hearts, Todd Farms behind it was using their irrigation system. And we love our farmers. That's why we're here. We only have 5 acres. We have a mini farm. My husband raises hay and we raise beef for their families. We give beef away to our children for Christmas every year. And that, I want to say that because, you know, they might say that they're only going to use so much water, and I'll try and take it at face value, but I want to trust what they're saying because I know how much they were using that irrigation system, and it wasn't a whole lot when we had a drought and we had no water for 2 days. And we had to drop our well or get someone out to pay for it. We told nobody. Nobody knew about this until just 2 weeks ago when we found out about this data center. And that's scary. Let me tell you, that's scary. And not to mention, we all know where we live. We live in northern Indiana, and we live in the greatest lake area ever. I know my time's up. I'm sorry. In conclusion, I would like to add, my granddaughter told me the other day, Grandma, this is my favorite place in the whole world. And I know they're looking forward to this summer with the other schools and the summer night watching fireworks every direction. And from our campfire, we can see it. And I dread having to possibly tell my grandchildren I can't turn off the bright lights to watch the falling stars.
Hello, my name is Christine Fisher. I've lived in Kosciuszko County for 30 years, and I wish to tell you about some industrial nightmares that I have experienced because this is a beauty. You've gotten statements of the agrarian area that is Kosciuszko County. I grew up in Elkhart County, the instrument capital of the world. I want to tell you about my younger brother who is now 16 years old. I found out that they had polluted their groundwater. We had a well, polluted it with 1,1,1-trichloroethylene. And having worked in an industrial plant for 30 years, Johnson Controls, one of Goshen, Indiana's largest employers, and also a proud member of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, their first female union president, I'd like to say my lifelong experiences have seen a lot of things, like the area behind the Johnson Controls, around the Johnson Controls factory, their water table contaminated with 1,1,1-trichloroethylene, and over in Elkhart, where places like Conselmer and Einhart were using the same degreaser fluid, that got into the well water too. I was old enough at 71 to see the explosion from Aquapack, boom, and people were killed. I have seen all sorts of things, like working in a factory for 30 years, not knowing until the plant closed and they outsourced the jobs to Mexico. And then from Mexico, my employer, Johnson Controls, moved their corporate headquarters to Ireland for tax reasons. I can see the downside of industrialization. My brother has rheumatoid arthritis and he has AFib. My sister is the only member of my family with type 1 diabetes. And unfortunately, in the state of Indiana, we acquiesced to Indiana EPA. And I'm sorry, they're not very good. I have difficulty with this economic development because it's my tax dollars. And when Rich Daniels took it over, he privatized it. And by privatizing it, none of these people in the room know where their tax dollars are going, and they're being given in a form of corporate welfare. And that's what it is, corporate welfare, and we're picking winners and losers. I wonder if the millions of dollars the attorney talked about will suffice, because it just sounds to me like 16 silver pieces that Judas had the choice of taking or not taking. But you cannot get water back when it is gone. And ask the people in Elkhart who are hooked up to city water. Ask the people in the neighborhood around the plant I work at that died of cancer. Ask a lot of people who are not in favor of this. You have a beautiful community here. I've enjoyed it for 30 years. I'd not like to see it go, But I want to tell you about a little place, Boone County, where another economic development acronym is LEAP, where they can come in and they can do whatever they darn well please. And the citizens don't need to know. This is going to be a hot button issue for a lot of people. When we talk about food insecurity, it's the people in these rooms that are not corporate entities. They are farm family entities. They produce a lot of food. And they are important to our community. The young lady that spoke before me talked, Indiana does have a consortium with all the states around the Great Lakes, not to take any water from the Great Lakes. Unfortunately, Kosciuszko County doesn't have the same idea. The young lady, her name is Sharon Nagel, she was from Boone County. That's where the LEAP went in. They wanted to put a pipeline in. She got voted out. And that can happen to you guys, not a threat, I'm just saying. But it is important, and water, like air, cannot be replaced. If you want to offer it up under what was it, $100,000 for 30 guys? You know, I used to hear that garbage from my industrial overlord, you know. He told me silly things like, you know, and I actually got to go down and visit the maquiladora down there, and he told me something ridiculous about how proud he was. Beautiful, brand new factory. You could have eaten off the floor. They had doctor's offices in it. And he told me how proud he was that the young ladies that were working in that factory didn't have to prostitute themselves. They could work for less than $3 an hour. It's a race to the bottom, whether you want to join it or not. Thank you for your time.
Hello. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Thomas Breakoff. I originally am not from this area. I'm actually from the state of Maryland, where our national anthem comes from. I live right off Hoffman Lake. I'm very opposed to this. I'm very opposed to this because we do not know the details of what this is going to do exactly. And people can go around saying, oh, this is going to be so-so. We don't know. People lie all the time. Like, they're not going to be open. And if I'm wrong, I'm sorry. But at the same time, just like the lady said before, we don't know what the environmental impact is. As someone, while I'm not a Hoosier, I'm an American whose roots go back before the American Revolution, which one of my ancestors, General Arthur Williams, fought along with General Kosciuszko, who this county is named after, liberate us from the British. And as an American, I do not want my land to be destroyed, to be harvested and sucked out by corporate greed. This is my land. This is my people. I'm not a commodity. I ask as county leaders that you'll do your job and protect them.
Thank you.
I'm going to try to sort it out. So I just want to make sure that you guys not sure I have enough copies. Hello, my name is Jamie Moneyheffer, and I am the daughter of James and Cheryl Moneyheffer. My family has been a part of the farming community for many years, with my parents both born and raised in Leesburg, specifically on 700 North. So when plans of this hyperscale data center came to light, you bet it hit home real quick for me. After attending the community meeting in March, I went seeking answers to only leave with more questions. Determined to understand, I dove deep into the multitude of layers of data center knowledge I could find. Trying to understand both sides, positive and negative, trying to see the good and the bad, the entire landscape. While working in the healthcare industry, I've learned to embrace that knowledge is power. The lack of details and information that was provided publicly to our community was little to none. With limited information here and there made it extremely challenging to my first request of knowledge. So I started reaching out to different organizations trying to satisfy this need that I had, hoping to get insight. My takeaways from the conversations and research that I have done is that the realm of data centers is vast and intricate. The peacefulness of this countryside set in contrast sharply with the vibrant activity of data centers, resulting in a distinct environment that raises various health concerns. As someone who appreciates both nature and technology, here are the possible health impacts that this data center may have on this community, though my research and conversations have left me with many uncertainties. 1, air quality concerns. 2, increased traffic and noise. 3, heat emission. 4, water usage and contamination. 5, mental health impacts on our community. 6, waste management. A few other key factors I'd like to know is that Microsoft in the past few months has been canceling these leased data centers that they use. Just to throw that out there, just so that we're all aware. In conclusion, I hope you review and analyze the ramifications this hyperscale data center will have on this community for generations to come. I urge you to protect and preserve the prime agricultural land and honor the comprehensive plan that was set forth in order to do just that, protect and preserve our way of life. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Brian Smith, third generation Hoosier in Plain Township. I want to kind of push back on the number of jobs that this claims to create. So the Wall Street Journal this month had a great article on the lack of jobs that data centers actually create. There was a huge data center in Texas, in Abilene, Texas. It was sold to the public that it would create 1,500 jobs. That's how much it actually created. That's 100. That's 1/15 of what was promised to the community. It's 1/15. So we're told this is going to create, and this was a 1 million square foot facility. So we're told that a facility much smaller in Leesburg, Indiana, is going to create 300 jobs. I'm not buying it. It's probably going to be closer to 20. So please do not sell out our prime farmland for 20 jobs. Also, if they're wrong about the jobs, what else are they wrong about? What else are they not telling us? I think it's going to take way much more water than what they're telling us. I think the other things that they're trying to sell us are not accurate either. So please vote this down.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leo. I'm going in a different direction. NIPSCO has already advertised they're going to shut down the 2 generating plants that they currently have in 2028. We must have contracts with RMC and Prologis to supply power to this data center. I predict in the next few months, the next 500 acres or 1,000 acres next to this, they're going to come to you and say, hey, we need to provide power for this data center. We need an I-3 for it. Small nuclear plant. NIPSCO's got the money to do it. Solar farm, you don't like wind farm. Or a gas-fired generating field. NIPSCO has the gas. So what I'm saying is, be careful what you do. There's going to be a cascading effect. Not only in this 500 acres, but in the future it's going to be the next 500, the next 500, and you're going to tie yourself into saying, you say yes to this, you're going to have to say yes to them. Because they have to supply power for the steps. The next thing I want to bring up is Prologis. You're the largest real estate company in the world. If they at any time feel that they can't make a profit on this thing, they'll shut her down. So what are you going to do is a 500-acre parking lot for a big building. They're big enough to shut it down. This is a separate entity, file bankruptcy, and leave the county holding the bill, even after the 20-year lifespan. What's the county going to do with this property? So please, I ask you to vote no and vote down. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you, folks, trying to stay within the time limit. It does help. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Audrey Rogers Smith, and I've lived most of my life on the west side of Leesburg. I am now just down from the farm where I was raised, and I know what kind of a traffic problem we're going to have on our country roads. And we have school buses on those roads twice a day. We have young drivers that'll be driving to and from school for sports practices and other school functions. And we have, during the from the planting season to the harvesting season, we have big machinery, slow moving machinery, and we have the big grain trucks. And if you introduce a lot of construction traffic into that, I think we're going to have problems. The ones of us that live out there, we watch out for the machinery, and for some of our other folks like the Amish that, because of their beliefs, they'll drive the horse and buggies, and they're on the roads too. We need to take in consideration what this extra traffic during the time of construction and after construction is going to do to the countryside. So I just wanted to bring that issue up. I don't think anybody else has brought that up before, but take that into consideration.
Thank you. My name is Randy Warren. I moved to Kosciuszko County in 1975. I'm the agriculture teacher and FFA advisor at Wallace High School. As a former teacher, I would like to commend the young people that have spoken today. Those are our future leaders, and I think we can be proud of that fact. I'm going to try to, what I had written down, a lot has already been said. I'm going to try my best not to duplicate some of this. My main objection here is obviously, like everyone else's, placement of this data set. I have no objection to a data center coming to Kosciuszko County if that's going to help the community. It's just the placement that concerns me. Kosciuszko County is in the top 12% of all counties in the United States in crop production. This land has been designated as prime farmland by the United States Department of Agriculture through the multiple soil surveys. We are blessed to have some of the richest soils in the nation. It would seem illogical to remove this land from production. In 1975, this county had over 291,000 acres of farmland. Today, that number stands at approximately 250,000. Now, that may not seem like a big drop, but when I calculated that out, that averages over 800 acres per year. And if I were to graph that out on a yearly basis, my prediction would be that has been increasing at an alarming rate. Probably started slow, but today it definitely has increased. If this data center proposal is accepted, we'll be setting a precedent for future decisions. Decision that can mean using more farmland that might be needed for additional businesses and homes, because from my research that I've done, I've noted that when a data center goes in, other businesses begin to accumulate around. We have to make a decision where we're going to place them. We place them on farmland, this becomes a rippling effect as we go on. I think we need to be a leader in this county as far as the example. Let's look for alternatives. If they want to build a data center in Kosciuszko County, I'm for that. Let's find feasible alternatives that will be pleasing to everyone. And it's your job. I know that may be a difficult situation. One thing that I did hear mentioned and before, and I put my cell phone up to show you, we've seen a lot of change in technology over the years. And I agree, when we're looking ahead to 2029 through 2048,
who knows what that technology will be and whether data centers will actually be something that's necessary. May very well be, may not. I heard the term diversification used. I agree with that. One of the reasons I love this county. We are very diversified, and agriculture is one of the main reasons that we are diversified, along with a lot of other functions. There's also mentioned about our agribusinesses supported through agriculture. We also need to look at the fact that not only does their income come to our farmers off of that land that they produce crops on, but as it goes through these different agribusinesses, that is value added to our community. That money just expands and gets used again and again and makes a even more valuable projection. Thank you for your time, and I wish you good luck on your decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Clary, and I want to start out by saying that I'm not a original resident of Kosciuszko County. I was born in Kokomo, grew up there. My first experience of this lovely county was coming to church camp at Epworth Forest, and I was immediately struck by how beautiful the area was around here. And I went to church camp there for all through junior high and high school. And then later on, I happened to marry a woman who grandfather had a little cottage on Lake Tippecanoe, and we came up here frequently. And after being married for 10 years, we decided to move up here. And I ended up working 25 years at KCH. So I can't think of any place else I would rather live. And we really, really, really have to protect the history and the culture of our county, and it is in agriculture. Human beings are attracted to bright, shiny objects, and that's what I think this data center is. My biggest worry about it is that the water consumption and the water runoff. I know people who live near data center in Indianapolis. They're quite good friends. Excuse me. And they live within 1,000 feet of it. Their water pressure has dropped significantly, so that they notice since that data center's moved in. Sewer doesn't work properly. There's a lot of noise. And they would like to move, but they can't because the property value, when they went into moving, their property value had decreased enough they'd be underwater on their mortgage if they decided to move. So I don't see this as being a very good thing. We lose too much farmland in this country the way it is. As a matter of fact, the United States loses 1.8 million acres a year. We lose 4 acres a minute. So in closing, just let me say that during the time of this meeting, the United States has lost 480 acres of farmland. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
I'm Bob Ferguson, and rather than be redundant, I'll keep this real short.
Thank you.
My biggest concern is once you let the genie out of the bottle on allowing this spot zoning to start, what's going to stop it? Suddenly you guys become null and void. Anything can happen. And another concern I have on this is the infrastructure of our roads. Our roads aren't up to this, what your construction thinking about. And my closing thought is, obviously, Mr. Snyder's never tried to pull a full truck off of 600 North on the 15.
My name is Erin Tumplin. I am coming to you as a neighbor that's going to be directly affected by this. Our farm will be surrounded by 2 sides. And I am going to speak for some of our neighbors, the Millers that sit over here. They are the little Amish family that lives in that little section that's edged out. not getting a choice. Their life is going to change. Our life is going to change. We are going to have to listen to a noise 24/7 for the rest of our life. That is not fair. That is not fair for people who have lived in this county. It's not fair to the farmers out there that have worked so hard to build the community that we live in. So I am very concerned about the noise. I'm concerned about what happens when you listen to noise 24/7. From what I understand, it's the running lawnmower, running all the time, or a motorcycle sitting on idle all the time. So our peace and quiet is over if you allow this to go through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your input. And now, Mr. Snyder will let you address any of these concerns. You have 15 minutes.
Thank you. I'll take the first few seconds of my valuable time by commenting to Bob Ferguson that on innumerable occasions, I pulled out of 600 North onto 15. While I wasn't hauling corn, I was hauling 2,500 gallons of propane. I'd rather get hit by corn than propane. That's as much humor as we're probably going to find today. One of the things I found in all the years I've been doing this is comprehensive plans are plans. And when the most recent Kosciuszko County comprehensive plan was put together, nobody even thought about a data center. Nobody thought about a data center until essentially a few months ago, when it was decided that it was time to amend the ordinance to find a place to put a data center, because sooner or later one was going to knock on the door. And that's exactly what happened. Spot zoning. I-3 requires 10 acres. If you stuck 10 acres in the middle of the farm field, it would be spot zoning. We're not talking about a 10-acre industrial site in the middle of an agricultural area. We're talking about a very large industrial complex that wouldn't fit on 10 acres. So when does it graduate from a 10-acre spot zoning to a 500-acre spot zoning? No, one is either spot zoning and the other isn't, or vice versa. But what I'm suggesting to you is this is not a question of spot zoning. That's a red herring that's being thrown at you because everybody does it. It's a common term. Everybody's heard it. And if there's no I-3 immediately adjacent and you want to put somewhere, then it must be spot zoning. Well, that's not the case. The question is, in this particular location, is it suitable for I-3 zoning? And are there special circumstances that permit you to recommend to the commissioners that it be rezoned to I-3? I would suggest to you we're dealing with infrastructure. No different than the intersection of the Pennsylvania Railroad and the Big Four in Warsaw, which attracted all kinds of things. We're dealing with 345,000 volt transmission lines converging in one location, making it an ideal spot for development for the purpose of a data center. We've already limited it to that data center. You don't have to worry about all of the other myriad uses that are available in an I-3 district. That won't occur. But I want you to look around at comprehensive plans that in this county only go back to 1974. That was the first comprehensive plan. Statute required that you have one before you could even adopt a zoning ordinance. So we had one, and it was around forever. But what happened between 1974 and yesterday? Well, every community, with some rare exceptions in this country, has one. And that means they require additional territory to house their citizens. Look around and sure enough, where do you get that territory to provide growth? It comes from vacant land. Vacant land is synonymous with agricultural land, because it doesn't have any structures. So every place that has been built since this county began has taken away agricultural land. Okay, is that progress? In most cases, it has been. One of the larger industrial complexes in this county is in Claypool, Louis Dreyfus, 310 acres of an industrial use. It's there because your zoning ordinance provides for agricultural production industry in an agricultural district. But that's a relatively newcomer too. Did it take productive farmland? I'm sure that was productive farmland. What was required? Louis Dreyfus had to have railroads, and they happened to have two in Claypool. They happened to have a state highway that was well maintained and would provide access to farming. They had that. They actually also needed power, and that was available at that site as well. So you had all three of those factors over the last 200 years converge in one site, and it took productive farmland to do it. They had to put it somewhere if they were coming to the county. And on 300 acres, there was no place to put it in town. So you're going to have to locate it out in the county where there is open space available. And that open space may be tilled right now. You've got the tax comparisons to see what would happen over a 20-year period with the tax revenue from farmland and the tax revenue from a data center. 300 plus million compared to 300,000. We have to start being protective of not just the farmland, but the income it can produce for the citizens of the county tax-wise in order to pay the bills for the services those same citizens demand. They're essential. One of the things I should mention is that Ecologists is certainly concerned with and dedicated to meeting its requirements. But when you're dealing with something this significant, you don't want to do it on a handshake. And ultimately, by the time this project gets to the point where construction is ready to begin, there will be a development agreement with the county regarding everything that's been said and represented to occur in the future, and hold the Logis' feet to the fire. If they want tax abatement, they have to meet standards A, B, C. I applaud the county because I'm not aware of any of those being in effect before, but it's time with a development this size that we have those details. The I keep hearing spot zoning, and spot zoning keeps copying into my mind. But we're not dealing with spot zoning. We're dealing with a large tract, which is required for this type of development. The last I-3 rezoning I can recall in this county goes back 16, 18, maybe 20 years north of Milford. And it was a tract that was adjacent on the south by 1300 north and on the north by the CSX road. And there was a big fight over that I-3 zoning. But there were no restrictions on its use back then. It was just the most logical place to put I-3 zoning in the county because of the access it had to the railroad and land access to State Road 15, which has now occurred. Now we're dealing with a situation where we have the convergence of three transmission lines that make this the most attractive spot for an I-3 zone with limitations on use that are being proposed. And yes, I understand all these people don't want it in their backyard, or they think we're losing farm ground. Actually, from 2007 2022, I believe, we've actually increased the amount of farmland, land that's being farmed. I'll let you look at the USDA record, but the farmland has actually increased and is now at 211,000 acres compared to 200,000 acres 3 years ago. But don't take my word for it because I'm full of it. Go check the USD records if you really want to confirm it. What I am saying is that would be 0.2% of the farmland in this county devoted to this project. And the result of an investment of this size in that 0.2% would be millions of dollars to the county, which will by that time be strapped for funds. Millions of dollars to provide the services that all of these people behind me demand of the county. It will not be capped from an assessed value standpoint, as is agricultural land by the state. It will be assessed for its fair market in use, which is what all property except agricultural property is to be assessed at under state law. What we will see is, yes, there will be spinoff, but we're not going to see the type of spinoff as you've seen from Louis Dreyfus with vastly increased truck traffic, noise, lighting, traffic in and out on a routine basis. Even at full build out, the maximum number of people that will be there would be 300 in any given day, and 100 of those each 8 hours. That's not a lot of traffic in and out. If the developer enhances the existence and condition of the roads that serve this property and agree to put that back into the same condition after the construction is done, the roadways are enhanced and the semis hauling 10,000 bushels of corn will be on a better road than they are now. I understand the agricultural community and its desire to preserve as much farmland as possible. But if we come to a standstill and don't consider any expansion for the purpose of growth, then we'll be dead. Because there won't be sufficient income in this county to support the services demanded by the county residents, and we will come to a screeching halt. That's when you find population decreasing rather than increasing. In this county, we've managed to provide facilities, jobs, and as much as possible, living space to allow for growth. If you want to stop growth, you won't build any more houses because you won't take any more farmland to create a subdivision. You won't build any more factories. You will do absolutely nothing and you'll find your population decrease. We have a chance here to take 500 acres, convert it to an I3 zone with a dedicated use, and provide more benefits than the agricultural use of it could provide for the next 60 years. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to close the meeting now to public comment so that we can have a discussion and come to some decision. Comments, thoughts?
Well, first of all, I'd like to address those people that sent letters in, and just to let you know that Matt Sandy, our planning director, forwarded to us each one of those letters that he read off earlier. There were a couple comments in those letters, and it gave us a chance up here, to consider things that you wrote about: land, water, electricity, traffic, and the aesthetics. But what I want to let you know is that for the vast majority of us up here, we are not in an elected position. We raised our hand and volunteered for this, to read your letters and to, over the last couple of weeks, toss and turn at night, being concerned about the difference between a private citizen and their ability and their right to sell their property versus your right to stand up and say, we need to look at this. We need to follow the plan. But nothing was under the table. It was all out in front. So those comments that were in your letters hit us hard to really consider what you wanted us to hear, wanted us to know, and us to research. Because we spent a lot of time digging through Google searches, which I'm sure you all did as well. So thank you for your participation in this public process.
Well, like I think everybody else, I did a lot of thinking, a lot of research, a lot of homework, a lot of reading out of the comprehensive plan. Many of and I made a lot of notes, and a lot of what you had said are in my notes. So here are just some things that strike me. First is this decision, if it were to go to approving this request, could create a level of uncertainty about the zoning decision that we make, uncertainty of a magnitude that could impact the work of the APC for many years to come. Yes, our comprehensive plan is just a plan, but it is our guideline. It helps kind of hold our feet to the fire in terms of what is considered most vital to this county. Spot zoning. I found a definition of spot zoning. I ran it past Matt Sandy, and he said, yeah, that's pretty much it. So here's my understanding. Spot zoning is rezoning a parcel of land within a larger zone area, often at odds with the master plan and current zoning restrictions. I don't care if it's 10 or if it's 500. If it gets that, that's an example in my mind of spot zoning. I thought about something I heard many years ago, and I'm sure many of you have heard this too. It's an idiom called the camel's nose under the tent. And it's a warning that allowing a debatable concession can lead to a larger and undesirable consequence. So, you know, the camel puts his nose under the tent, and pretty soon the whole camel's inside the tent. That's kind of been alluded to by some of your comments. And my concern is not that this particular request will change from a data center, because Mr. Snyder has accurately represented that that won't happen. And it'll just be a data center. What about the other areas around it? That concerns me, and I think it opens a Pandora's box that I'm not comfortable with at all. And then something else that rattled around in my head with the printout of the financial considerations for the county and the township and the schools and that kind of thing, which are very, very attractive if they're true. And the phrase that rattled around in my head was, all that glitters is not gold. And I think that there's a price to be paid, one way or the other on that. And I'm not willing to pay the price for the people that are going to be most affected by this. And also thought about that phrase that when you deal with financial issues involving investments or whatever, and you see this often, and it'll ring true with you, and that is past performance is not indicative of future results. So that's a common warning, that past successes don't necessarily guarantee similar outcomes. So, you know, there may be data centers that are very successful. We don't know. And that took me, and I don't mean to interject religion here, but I'm just going to tell you, it took me to the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 10, verse 14, says this: no one knows what is coming. Who can tell someone else what will happen after them? And that tells me we need to be careful about making assumptions far into the future. I don't know if all these promises or these projections, maybe is a better way to put it, about the benefits of this data center. I don't know if that will come true. I mean, right now our economy seems to be kind of in turmoil. Who knows what tomorrow is going to bring? I don't know, but I do know one thing, and that is a usage such as this is going to alter the nature of that area for as far as I can see into the future. And last, when it comes to the job issue, and one of the gentlemen mentioned something similar to this, it made me think back to a book I read many years ago. There's a guy named Warren Bennis, who was well, let's call him an expert in leadership and management. And he wrote a lot of books, just good common sense stuff about how to lead, how to manage. 1989, he said, the factory of the future will have two employees, a man and a dog. The man's job will be to feed the dog, and the dog's job will be to make sure the man doesn't touch any of the machines. Okay, now he wrote that a long time before artificial intelligence. I don't know if there's going to be 300 jobs or not, but there's certainly things to think about in terms of whether that's going to could be, you know, maintained and for how long. So those are some of my.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to deny this request.
I second it.
I have a motion to deny. Second it. Is there discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I hear no opposition. Is denied.
So as I had mentioned before, this is a recommendation. This recommendation will be taken to the county commissioners at their April 22nd, 2025 meeting, 9:15 a.m. right in this room, to my knowledge. And that we'll be taking them with a recommendation to not rezone. And that'll be a unanimous recommendation.
Have any other business, man?
We have nothing else on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.
Thank you for your time today.